Hi, Jack Canfield here, and welcome back to another segment of Talking About Success. I have a wonderful guest today, Carol-Ann Hamilton, who's written a very interesting and I think valuable and important book called Coping with Uncopable Parents. I love it. Coping with Uncopable Parents, Loving Action for Elder Care. And so many people in this baby boom generation, the in-between generation, are dealing with this issue of dealing with their parents who are aging and having to take care of them, and dealing with all the questions about when do we take the driver's license away? How do we get them to go into a home? They don't want to go into a home. So all these issues complicated by someone who's uncopable as opposed to my nice mom and dad. And so we've talked earlier today about this book. I love what's in here. Lots of good information. You were a leadership trainer doing trainings in corporations and so forth. How did you come to write this book? What led this to be now your mission in life?
Yeah, how do you get from leadership to coping with uncopables? And it's as simple as seeing my own difficult aging parents go through their transitions, Jack. And it has made me fundamentally committed to helping others who are dealing with this very difficult situation of pulling out their hair by the roots.
No one else should have to suffer as much as you did?
Rather like that.
You're going to share that with them?
Yes.
So what are, people out there, there's a lot of information here that you garnered from your own experience, then you've researched it further. What tips would you have for people about what mistakes? Let's sort of look at two things together. What mistakes should they avoid? Then we'll talk about what things they should do.
Well, first off, try getting them to do things your way and let me know how that goes for you. So don't try to force your way upon them. Rather, the device that you think is used for cleaning out ears called Q-tips?
Yes.
Well, actually, it stands for quit taking it personally, because an aging parent who can be difficult is like a teenager out on curfew, and you cannot allow them to think it's anything but their idea when they want to do something.
Give me a story or an illustration of perhaps how you would go about doing that.
Taking away the car keys. Well, don't use the language, take away, because that will never work. But instead, when you have a dad like mine, who was a professional truck driver during summers when he was a school teacher, chip away at it an inch at a time. If you make even a slight bit of progress by planting the seed, then coming back to it and helping them to see that this is really not going to be a good practice, helping them to come up with the idea that it's them who sees that it's time to surrender the car keys. But over time, don't think you'll make progress in just one sitting.
So the first thing is don't delude yourself that you're going to have one conversation and it's done.
Forget it.
I get that. Okay, so role play with me for a minute. I'm your aging father. Part of my identity in life is I'm a driver, right? How did you broach the conversation? What would you have said to me?
Well, Dad, we know that there have been some incidents over time about bumping into some cars in the parking lots. And I know that was the fault of the other driver. Yet, I wonder if we should start to look a little bit at how that's working for us, and maybe does it become time to look at some other options, maybe start to look at taking cabs some places, or we can go places together. I'll do the driving for you. What do you think? What do you think of that? And I'm just planting the seed for today. That's all. Want you to think about it. You don't have to make any kind of decision whatsoever.
Okay, I'll think about it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you just to entertain that.
Okay, good, you got it. That's cool. Okay, that's helpful. I think people will, you can say, well, broach it slow. That's useful. What would your next conversation be?
So, Dad, I'm so glad that you agreed to think about it. What has come up for you in our dialogue since the last time about driving? What are you thinking?
Okay, this is good. I get it. Thank you. I'm not going to try to be your dad right now. I'm not going to play it out, but I get where you're going with this. And I think that's really good. Eventually, you're saying hopefully he will come to the conclusion, yeah, you're right. I have hit a couple cars and I don't like that. I don't know where I am sometimes. And maybe I should be taking cabs.
Because you pride yourself on your driving ability. You've
Hmm.
always been such an exceptional safe
Uh,
driver from the age of 16. You've got an over 70-year career in driving,
hmm
mom and me everywhere.
hmm
And I know you would hate to think of yourself as anything but the most stellar driver in the world.
You're right. Don't want to mess up the record.
No, no.
You're good. I like it. That's good. Here's my keys.
Were it that easy?
No, I know. I get it. I get it. Any other mistakes besides assuming it's going to happen quickly, not going slowly, not allowing, so helping them come up with the idea?
Right. And what we focus on expands. So the more you're thinking how difficult they are, how strenuous this is, how crazy you're going, when will this be over? Rah! The more you're going to get exactly that same reaction back. So, what would it be to just understand them from their perspective? Because you know what? What could actually be happening here is that the unknown is beckoning. Yes, I'm talking about their transitions.
Mhm.
What if they're just scared?
Right.
Like when the terrible twos become the awful 80s. But in this case, it's just that they're afraid. And if you were dealing with a child who was afraid, might you have some heart and soul for them and look past some of the fury, some of the acting up, and really see what was actually going on there?
hmm
Rise above it,
hmm
look beyond yourself. Not easy to do in
No,
the heat of the moment.
no, it's not. When you're just, especially I think for a lot of people, when you are at the stage where your parents need this kind of intervention, you're often at the top of your career. It's like you're busy
Yeah,
and you want it to go quick and let's get these decisions made. And it's kind of like, taking a 2-year-old shopping. It's just not, you got to be patient.
patient, right?
Yeah.
And yet we learn so much in the process. Gosh, I know that some of my most poignant and meaningful conversations with my dad happened in those final months. I am now, not I was at the time, but now, so grateful to have had those. Those are the memories that I cherish the very most. And so
hmm
there's a lot of possibility that comes from seeing our parents through, if we can make it
hmm
through the marathon with these coping skills.
Very cool. Very cool. You know what I think is interesting about what you're doing? Because as we were role playing there, I was thinking, God, that same communication technique would work well with a teenager. Letting them come up with the idea, not trying to just bulldoze them into something that they don't want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that what happens for people is when you don't know what to do, you just end up getting frustrated. And when you're frustrated, you get angry, and then it creates more separation and more knocking loggerheads. So in your book, I'm assuming there's lots of these little tips about things to do, and so that people don't have to be lost. They've got some guidance to go for.
Mhm.
So we talked about a couple of things not to do. Is there anything you can share with us about some tips of things to do?
Having lived in a lab for this period of time across 4 years with my mom and dad,
hmm
I tried an A to Z, so learn from my failed experience.
hmm
And instead, what to do is the loving action keys are kind of a combination of a mindset. So being neutral, being gracious, being open, laughter. Let's not forget humor.
hmm
Sometimes it's so crazy making, if you don't laugh, you'll cry or something like that. So
Right.
there's a way of being that we can have, as well as things that we can do around really listening, observing, as if you were in business. Think about a contentious meeting with your boss. Wouldn't you kind of go into it prepared, but also open, available, present, watching, not taking everything at face value, because again, they can be sneaky, but instead really clarifying, making sure that both parents' voices are heard. Certainly with my own folks, my mom tended to defer to my dad, and so I was often the referee. between the two of them, not unlike a business negotiation where all parties' voices have to come to the table.
So I think, a lot of this is just good communication skills that most people have never learned, unfortunately. Where do we learn it? They don't teach it in school,
No.
So good for you. Anything else you want to leave us with before we tell people how to get a hold of your book and how to reach you?
This chapter of life, when really done with aplomb, can teach you so much about yourself and the inner metal and strength from which you're made. And I emerged from what was a grueling marathon far more competent, lots more confident, and really having built the resourcefulness as a problem solver. And if I can do it, I know others can too.
Well, I can see the radiance in your face, so I know you did. You emerged looking pretty good.
Thank you.
Got a lot of energy and love, joy coming out of you. It's great. So, if people want to get a hold of your book, or if they want to reach you, where do they go?
I'd love for them to go to Coping with Uncopable Parents, my website.com, and there you can find my Eldercare rescue guide full of chock-a-block tips, tools, and techniques.
So copingwithuncopableparents.com.
That's right.
Very good. Very good. And is your book in Amazon and places like that?
It is, yes.
Very great. I love it. And I love the cover on this too. Because I know about these ostriches. They can go like that.
Kind of like that when they're not in the sand.
They're going to put their head in the sand as well. Very good. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank
I
you.
really encourage you to get a hold of this book. Stick with us. We'll be right back.